Good night, viewers, and welcome to this another program of Breaking Down the Issues. The official host of this program is the Honorable Shurwayne Holder, Member of Parliament and Shadow Minister of Natural Resources. My name is Dennis Jaikran, and I'm the co-host of this program. Tonight, this program is going to take a different format because of the topic we are going to discuss, which is matters of national importance. And so we would take the form of a moderation program. I'm going to be the moderator, and the official host is going to be the guest, and we expect a few other guests on this program tonight. So at this stage, I want to take this opportunity in welcoming our official host of this program, the Honorable Shurwayne Holder, Member of Parliament and Shadow Minister of Natural Resources. As I said early on, our topic would be matters of national importance. And we are going to be dealing tonight with two main areas of focus. The recent visit, which would be number one, of the Honorable Aubrey Compton Norton to Region 2, leader of the People's National Congress Reform and leader of the opposition. And the second area of discussion on this moderated program would be the Adriana Young demise. And we are going to be able to touch on a number of issues, breaking down the issues as we deal with the topic matters of national importance. So at this stage, I want to take this opportunity to welcome the Honorable Shurwayne Holder, Member of Parliament and Minister of Natural Resources, so that we can be able to focus on the areas. Honorable Shurwayne Holder, Member of Parliament and Minister of Natural, Shadow Minister, I might not be wrong, Shadow Minister of Natural Resources. Let me take this opportunity to welcome you to this program. And early on, I would have outlined the two areas which we will discuss tonight as matter of national importance. One would be the visit of the Honorable Aubrey Norton, leader of the People's National Congress Reform and leader of the opposition to Region 2. And secondly, we are going to discuss issues in relation to the Adriana Young demise. And so, having welcomed you, Honorable Shurwayne Holder, let us go straight into the discussion. You know, Honorable Shurwayne Holder, the leader of the opposition and leader of the People's National Congress Reform, the Honorable Aubrey Norton, Member of Parliament, visited Region 2 as a matter of grave concern as it relates to the demise also, the difficulties and the problems of our rice farmers are facing. And he would have visited a number of senior citizens, and he would have also looked at the number of incomplete projects in this region. Let us take them one by one. And so can we first of all establish what was the purpose of the visit of the Honorable Aubrey Norton, MP, leader of the People's National Congress Reform, and leader of the opposition to Region 2.
Thank you, Mr. Jaikran. Good night to you. Good night to your listening and viewing audience. It's always a pleasure to be able to share my views on these platforms. So I'm happy again to once again be on this platform where we can discuss matters of national importance, and as we name the program, breaking down those issues, those matters, so that um, all Guyanese can understand, the various angles of them. And so, thanks for joining me on this program tonight. To start with the leaders' visit to Region 2, that was an impromptu visit, as you outlined. And I like the word that you said. It's another demise. We're looking at two demise tonight. Unfortunately, the demise of little Adriana Young. But the leader 2 weeks ago would have visited Region 2. As a matter of fact, it was the very day that little Adriana disappeared, on the 23rd of Wednesday, the 23rd of April. It is the very day that she would have encountered um, her issues, her problems that led to her demise. That was the very day that the leader visited with a theme of members of parliament and other senior party functionaries, members of parliament from various parties, and seniors from within the APNU. It was an impromptu visit, but in the sense that it wasn't planned long in advance, but it was based outcry, on the outcry that we saw, that we heard from a number of farmers, from many farmers all across Region 2. There was and still is a problem, a major, major problem in the rice industry. And so the leader thought that he should have moved on it immediately with haste. You would know, Comrade Jaikaran, that rice would have been one of the agriculture products that would have carried our economy for decades upon decades, along with sugar. As a matter of fact, rice forms, I believe, about 20% of the total agriculture GDP in this country. And so it is a significant industry, and any issue that affects it will have a significant effect on the agriculture industry, on the economy, and on the lives, not only on the lives of the farmers and their families, but on the lives of all Guyanese. It will have an impact. And so the leader visited Region 2 with that team, and he spoke with a number of farmers throughout the Essequibo coast. What we found, and let me give you a little background on what we found during that visit. There are two major issues. Well, it's actually one, but two I would say at different stages. First, you had farmers that were unable to reap their crop. That was one of the main issues. And then you had those that were able to reap but were unable to sell it to the mill. And that was another issue. But both of them are interrelated. We spoke with farmers across the region, as I said, and those that those that were experiencing the issue in terms of reaping the crop. We found out that it was linked to a specific, it was more or less linked to a specific variety of paddy, which the government now boasts about in terms of its ability to produce a high yield. But with that high yield comes other issues where if you're unable to reap the paddy at, at a particular time, if you're unable to reap it at a particular time, then it falls into the field. And if the rain comes, as we are in the rainy season at this stage, the May June rains, and if in April, I should say, you have had some rain in April, the crop would damage. And then there is difficulty in terms of getting machinery to go into that field to get that paddy out. So that was one of the major problems we saw. And this is not a new problem, I might say. This is something that would have been going on for a number of years since the introduction of these new varieties of paddy. But the government seemed to handle this matter in a very callous way, uncaring way. They're focused on heavy on production to boast that they would have, they would have produced so much paddy for whichever year, but then they're not telling you the whole story in terms of the struggles of these farmers. And so that was one of the problems, and we recognize also that even those who were able to reap their paddy, there's a major problem across the region where only about 2 mills were buying paddy. It is not that mills don't want to buy paddy, they have to buy paddy. That is the business that they're in. But they weren't buying paddy, obviously, because they had paddy in the system. They still had paddy in the system. And that is because of the lack of market so that they can mill that paddy out and push it off in the form of rice. So they had huge backups in terms of their storage. And so they were limited in terms of how much paddy they could have bought. And that created a demand and supply problem. The demand therefore became more than the demand was less than the supply. The supply was more than what the mills were demanding. And therefore it resulted in mills turning away farmers, some farmers, if they found that the grade was a little bit below par. It resulted in them not buying at all. It resulted in them also wanting to pay a lower price for the various grades. And that ultimately affected the farmers. We saw hundreds of trailers lined up at at the mills, and some of them, although they're in the line there and the miller is buying, the paddy would have spent so long because it's days in the trailer. It starts to heat up and then it starts to spoil. And so we saw resulting from that a number of farmers had to dump their paddy, dump their entire load. So that is a complete loss. And we actually went to some locations where we saw the paddy being dumped on a concrete floor somewhere and left. Maybe they would have to use it as some poultry feed or something, give it away to people who have poultry farms. And you had other cases where we saw them just dump the paddy around the rice field area. So that is completely lost. So, in a nutshell, those were some of the major issues that we saw. Farmers estimated that they would have lost tens of millions of dollars. They are unable to say how they will acquire finance to get back into the field when they would have lost most of the crop or all of the crop. As we speak right now, there's still farmers who would have abandoned their fields because it doesn't make sense at this stage. The system is completely filled, and so it doesn't even make sense um, trying to get a combine. As a matter of fact, I spoke with a farmer just this evening, and he said to me, the combine operators. For those who don't know what is a combine, the combine is the harvester that harvests the paddy from the field to make the rice. The harvesters, the people who own the harvesters, are refusing at this stage to go and harvest paddy because they're afraid that they won't be paid. Because when you harvest the paddy, most of these farmers operate on a credit basis. You sell your paddy to the mill, and whenever the mill pays you, if it's in 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 weeks, you're paid. then you pay the harvester, you pay the other persons to plow your field, etc. And so those persons are fearful that one, you might not get a paddy sell, or two, if you get it sold, you might get such a low grade that you might not be able to complete your financial responsibilities with them. And so they're not harvesting the paddy. And so it is a crisis for some persons. Some would have gotten through, but a lot would have suffered. We've seen a lot of farmers in the Paradise, Devonshire Castle Paradise area. That is a hot spot. And I noticed the minister was there just recently and he spoke nothing of the issue. The attorney general was there campaigning just recently, and I don't think he took the time to go and see those farmers who would have lost so much, their entire livelihood. They would have watched it go down the drain. There are a few other issues, Mr. Jaikaran, that we came across in terms of the rice industry. Drainage was a problem in some areas, and I'm sure that we have some videos. We have lots of videos of farmers speaking to the issue. They're questioning where is the money going that Zulfikar, the Minister of Agriculture, and the government is usually, babbling about, that they invest so much into the rice industry, but they're and so much into drainage. Zulfikar likes to speak about drainage, but yet there are major issues in terms of drainage and irrigation in these rice producing communities, and they're not obviously not being addressed by this government. I think one or a couple of farmers actually said that equipment with in the forms of pump, that would have been working, that would have been installed for the benefit of the farmers during our rule from 2015 to 2020. Those were working very well, to provide drainage and irrigation for the farmers, and they're not working now since they took over. At least in the last 4 years or so, those I think in one area in the Waltnall area, only one pump they said is working, and the other is not. So these are simple issues. I think the farmer also said that he raised it with the minister, and the minister was very arrogant, and his response was that they're still in warranty period and the people got to come and fix it. Well, 4 years would have passed, or 5 years would have passed, and they're not doing anything about it. And it just goes to show their lackluster approach and their lack of understanding of the importance of what we would have done to benefit those farmers and to benefit the local economy and the national economy. So, in a nutshell, those were the issues that we came across. The leader of the opposition, of course, led the charge, and he laid out a plan after speaking with farmers all across the region. He said, look, and this is why I like Aubrey Norton. He's a smart fellow. He analyzes things very, very quickly, and he could put a plan in place without even, going into depth, and without even speaking to the experts. He himself, listening to the farmers, gathering what they're saying, gathering some of the solutions, and he put together quickly a plan, a strategy, a 3-point strategy where we as the next government will tackle it in 3 phases. We'll tackle it at the production level because we identified that there are problems at the production level in terms of the variety of paddy. You can't just go to Brazil and choose a variety of paddy, bring it here, and it doesn't suit the climate here, because Brazil, you have to focus on where in Brazil it comes from. Certain parts of Brazil is very cool, and some parts are more tropical. So you gotta understand that those factors, and so we'll have to look at the production level in terms of variety, at the production level in terms of drainage and irrigation. And I believe the farmers were praising us in terms of what we did for them, from 2015 to 2020 in terms of drainage and irrigation. And so we have to go back to the drawing board to fix that at the root there. And then we have to tackle it at at the at the processing level, where you carry it to mill, or to store. And he would have suggested that we have a public private partnership. The government by no means wants to take over the industry. A lot of persons suggested that there should be a government mill, and we take into consideration that suggestion. But we're saying we're looking, and this is all preliminary. Yeah, um, we're looking at a public-private partnership where we will have mills, we will have storage, where the government of the day will have a stake in it, and so we will sort of remove the kind of advantage that some mills take on the farmers, and we'll create a level playing field for competition. Because once you have those mills operating, um, you won't have such a big price gap, and then we'll have adequate storage, so you won't have this problem where you have hundreds of trailers lined up and then your paddy spoiling in the trailer before it can get to the mill. So we solve it at that production level, and then we have to look at the other level as well, that is marketing. When we took government, and let me just say this for our viewers, when we took government in 2015, Mr. Daikaran, you were an REO, you would recall, you are an REO for Region 3, I believe, and that's also a heavy rice producing region. You would recall
Mm.
that we would have just lost the rice to the Petro Caribe. That deal fell
Okay.
apart before we got in, where Venezuela was buying a lot of our paddy. So you had readily available market, good paying market, and those markets were lost under the PPP, and they stood quiet. And it was like a whole setup. When we took government, that was the first crisis, and certainly that was one of the first crises we had to deal with. But we dealt with it. We asked for government, and we said to people that we would solve the problems in the rice industry, and we did for that period. Largely, we got new markets, and we got things going all across the world. We got markets, and rice farmers could have breed a little easier, and the industry. I think twice we had, in 2016 we had the highest production level, and then again in 2019 we had the two highest ever production level, and all of this during our period without oil. And so we know what is it that we have to do. We've done it in the past, and we will certainly do it again as we take government in the next whenever the next elections are called, and we expect that those elections will be called no later than November 2nd of November, when it is constitutionally due.
Thank you very much, MP. I'm happy you made mention of the fact that what are our plans when we get in government the next time around. And so at this stage, I think we would have covered that aspect of the leader's visit to the region as it relates to the farmers, the response, because you made mention of that. You made mention of what we saw, the team saw in the field, and that feedback you had with our farmers from then until tonight when you came to this program. And so you must be commended as a member of parliament to have been able to do that feedback with our rice farmers, bringing them that level of comfort and giving them that level of satisfaction. You know, when the leader was in this region, he visited at least, I can't recall the number, a number of senior citizens. And I know we wouldn't want to name those persons, but just advise and say to us and to the viewers, why is it you think our leader would have engaged senior citizens? And as an extension, what are the plans as the next government we would have for our senior citizens? So we
Well,
can take it from there.
it's a great question. The leader visited Region 2. I said the primary reason was to the rice farmers. But he took the opportunity to do two other things, and one of them was his visit to senior citizens across the region and across race, across the political divide. He just
Mhm.
visited senior citizens, people in, when I say senior citizens, people in their 80s, 90s, close to 100, those big people. Those are the ones that we're talking about. And it's a great question. You see, Aubrey Norton is a genuine person. Um, a lot of people like the photo ops, and just be there for the photo ops, for people to believe that you're doing something. But he is genuine. From the time he became the leader of the opposition, leader of the party, he started to talk about a people-centered approach towards development in his country, one that puts people first, every Guyanese first, and especially the poor and the vulnerable. And he would have worked out a plan with his party to deal with persons of all of every nature, of all ages. But I want to zone in specifically, as your question would direct me, to senior citizens. We have a plan championed by our Aubrey Norton for senior citizens when we become the next government. We um, we always thought that these persons, after working their entire life, serving slavishly to their families and to country, they deserve that when they reach a particular age, they deserve to live a comfortable life, especially given the fact that we are now an oil-rich nation, a nation considered as one of the fastest growing economies in the world, the entire world, Mr. Jaikaran. And so we must do better by our citizens, and especially our senior citizens. And so we, as a party, we've done this in the past. You would recall from 2015 when we came in, we raised the pension. We almost doubled it. And I mean, you can say now with the cost of living that it is not enough because of the high cost of living at this stage. But we recognize that they needed help at that stage, and we did it for them then. The People's Progressive Party came in. They have tons of cash, five times the more than five times the budget that is available to them. Plus, they're borrowing 10 times over. So they have lots of cash. But what have they done for the pensioners? A paltry couple $1,000. Some years they got, increases that could not even provide the passage for them to go and uplift that money. They provided an
Pension.
increase that does not match the current situation with respect to the cost of living. And remember, these are persons that are mostly unemployed. They don't have another source of income. They depend solely on their pension for their daily survival. And so we are saying to the public that as soon as we take government, we are going to increase that pension to something that is livable, something that can work to match the current economy. And what the figure that we intend to carry it to is $100,000. And so I believe once we carry it there, once we move it, it's currently $43,000, which is way below the minimum wage, mind you. And so we will carry that up to $100,000. And so we believe that every pensioner in this country, I believe we have about 70, 80,000 pensioners in this country, or maybe more. But those on record, the NIS records would show somewhere thereabout. And I believe that those 70, 80,000 people deserve a good life as well. And we intend to do just that for them. And so that is why he visited pensioners to get a feel as to how they are surviving, how they're coping in region 2. And we touched, it didn't matter whether it was an Afro village and Indo village, we touched pensioners across the board. So we have a full understanding of their circumstances. And so in case we have to do even more, we will do that when we get government. The I know you might want to get to the third point of the visit. Um, the third point, if I
Yeah,
can.
I'm coming to the third point.
Okay, Okay, okay.
Yeah, but I'm happy that
Yes.
you
So
were able to identify what would have been the plans, or what are the plans the next government, our next government, would have in place for senior citizens as it relates to old age pension. And that figure you would have called there. So for those pensioners, old age pensioners who are listening to this program, you need to make that special effort to cause this to happen. And for those other persons who are listening to this program and who are not old age pensioners, but would get there sometime, you also need to make that or cause that to happen the next time around. So while we are dealing with this visit, the Honorable Shurwayne Holder is saying to all our viewers what are the plans and the different areas that we have as the next government of this country. And so, Honorable Shurwayne Holder, let me thank you for that. And let me go down to the third area in which the purpose, so to speak, of the visit of the leader to this region. And so, among the other things, he looked at a number of incomplete projects. As an engineer, I want you to speak from that point of view also. And I want you to speak from the point of view of the team being led by the Honorable Aubrey Norton, visiting some of these projects, incomplete projects of 2023-24, still to be completed. Speak to us, take us through all of
well,
those incomplete projects that would have been visited, the terrible, I use the word, terrible state they are in. And we did not go to one of them, which is a major eyesore, that thing they are creating there at the Anna Regina Community Center that they call a stadium there. And I saw on a course, but we come to the infractions later on of that one. But MP, speak to us on the
yes.
issues.
As you correctly said, the leader took the opportunity to visit a number of projects. Most of them were incomplete projects, and when we say incomplete, we mean that they're now beyond the contractual date, completion date. Many of them way beyond, in the form of 1 year, 2 year overdue. And so one particular project that we spent a lot of time on was the charity pump. It would have featured a number of times in the news, and then things got quiet with it. But I don't believe that persons actually recognize what would have transpired there at the charity riverfront. Now, this project, I'm sorry that our not next guest is not here. I'm certain that he would have wanted to jump in on it because I know he has the figures
Yeah,
because of the
Honorable
committees
my
that
Paul.
that he served on, Honorable Mike Paul. But he's indicated that he will come in shortly. But the charity river pump, I believe, costs somewhere around 500 and something $1 million. So it's a huge project, and it should have come with huge benefits, big benefits in the form of drainage and irrigation for the people of Charity, who are usually faced with flooding every time the rain comes. But what they did, the project fell down from the beginning because of this policy that the government has. This policy of awarding major projects or most of the projects corruptly to friends, families, and favorites of the government. And so it is on that basis that we see the taxpayers sort of getting the messy end of the stick in so many instances, especially in this one. Now they awarded the contract to a friend, obviously, who has no experience, and I'm giving you from an engineering standpoint now, has no experience to undertake a project of such magnitude and such complexity. The pump station is would have been located immediately on the bank of the river, of the Pomeroon River. It is the deepest river I'm told in the entire Caribbean, and so you needed proper experts. The soil type is also different there because you're actually in the Pomeroon, so it's not clay, fully clay soil. It's more of a paga soil. So there again, you had to get people with a kind of expertise, experience, to and to carry out, and the right equipment to carry out this project. So it was a failure from the beginning. Now the government was questioned. The site, I'm sorry, we don't have the picture. I don't know if the operator has any picture on it, but the site is left abandoned. Um, I believe over 100 million was already spent on the project. You have piles there, sheet piles. Those are not cheap by any means. You have metal piles there. You have wooden piles there. You had to pay for work, for digging, for excavation, a whole number of things. Tens of millions of dollars were spent there and just abandoned. I believe the pumps also were ordered, and only God knows where those pumps are. Up to now, the minister can't say where those pumps are. And so that is why I say that the taxpayers, the people of Guyana, are now once again getting the messy end of the stick with regards to this project. This project was awarded since 2022, and it was to be completed 1 year late. I can't remember the exact date, but I believe it's early 2022, sometime April or so, June, between April and June. And it was supposed to be completed within 12 months, 2023. There was an extension. What they did was to extend it, although they knew that they would have recognized 1 year later that nothing much was happening. You don't even have a foundation. You had a breach. The contractor actually caused flooding. You had a breach, whatever they did wrong. They were supposed to reinforce, in my view, they were supposed to reinforce the river dam before they begin any excavation there, because the river is very, very deep. And it caused some undermining. They didn't do that. It caused some undermining, and the whole riverbank washed away, causing flooding, heavy flooding in the Charity area. There are videos in existence on social media that you could see. Farmers lost their crops. There were damages to persons' homes and properties. The government didn't stand any of these expense. That is the cause of the incompetence and corrupt nature of the People's Progressive Party. And yet, when these things would have occurred after 12 months, they extended, they didn't take away the contract. Ejil likes to speak about whose contract will be taken away. Irfan Ali had that famous 5 o'clock meeting, but he didn't call this contractor to grill him on the state of this project. They pushed that under the rug. It is all a farce, all a game. That 5 o'clock, 5 a.m. meeting. So that is where we are in terms of that project, and we the leader had a good look at it. We did have some comments on it, but of course the demise of young Adriana Young, that took front stage because a life was lost. And so we're now actually putting out some information on these projects. But that was a major one. We also looked at the unfinished charity market, which again, hundreds of millions of dollars. They put a structure up. It is not one that is comfortable for the vendors. We spoke with a lot of vendors. The design seems to be a bad design. And then they did not take into consideration the number of vendors. Could you believe that? They did not take that into consideration. So now they have to add another stage of the project. They claim that they have a new stage now where they're building a shed around the building to put at least some of the remaining vendors, those who are on the outside. And we found also with that project that persons who had stalls, legitimate stalls in the old market before it was burnt to the ground, those many of them did not get a spot back in the market, although they applied and the authorities know. The authorities know, the PPP controls that NDC, and they know everybody who used to pay for a stall there. They have a register, or they're supposed to have a register. And so they're acting unfair again. And those are some of the comments we had. If I could go through quickly, we visited a number of other sites.
Let me just make 2 points before we go on, MP. One, where you had the existing dam, so to speak, the Orton Dam,
Yes.
before that construction of the area for the pumps to go, the midpoint of that dam to where you had the trench bordering the cemetery, it was about 50 to 60 meters. If you go now and you witness that with the team, that dam, that Orton Dam that the people are now using, is now moved from that midpoint of 50 to 60 meters away from the trench, and it is right next to the trench. And so the next thing might happen, they would condemn that trench and maybe go directly into that cemetery. And so that is the point the people of Charity, we need to know. The second thing, I know that you are moving on from the Charity market for the other projects.
I wanted to comment on the same dam.
Okay, yes.
No, what I missed, what I should have said was that they had to build as a result, and you're correct, as a result of the breach created by the incompetence of the government and the contractor. They now had to go and spend tens of millions of dollars again to create what you might want to call a levee. It's a raised bank running for maybe about 200, 300 feet along the riverbank, and it's more in now. It came in more. And so tens of millions unnecessarily had to be spent to create a man-made riverbank. You had a riverbank existing, and you go and trouble it without the requisite experience and the technical things that you're supposed to know, and then you cause the taxpayers, cause the people of Guyana tens of millions. I should have mentioned that. And we have these things on video. We have these things on video.
Right, we have them. Before you move on to the other projects, the incomplete projects, because I know that we have a major area to discuss just now. It is alleged that a few months ago, because of bad planning, that they dismantled a concrete structure right at Charity Market, valued about $35 to $40 million. This is an allegation. And when we went there, we saw some things doing there to cause a new structure just at the side next to the river there. Honorable, we have our Honorable Ganesh Maipal MP.
Good night.
Shadow Minister of Local Government and Regional Development. Welcome, sir. We are at the point of discussing the leader's visit to the region, and MP Holder was taking us through the paces of some of the incomplete projects. And we started with the area of the charity area, and we were dealing with the disaster at the Charity waterfront, which would be 2 projects. And so if Honorable Shurwayne Holder would give us the permission to have some comments from MP by Paul, and then we take it from there.
Yeah, thank you. Ganesh would have a lot of information because he sits on the PAC, so we welcome him.
Thank you. Thank you. Good night. Good night to you, Sir Dennis. You know, I have to give you the due respect. Having served so long in the teaching profession, and my colleague, Shurwayne. Um, I want to start by saying that I had to swim the deep and walk the shallow to get here. So forgive me for my late entry. A lot of things are happening. I was listening to the program nonetheless, and I did hear my colleague Sherwin commenting on the pump station. I want to first say that the issue with the pump station has to do with the Ministry of Agriculture not doing due diligence. It would have required a study to ascertain whether it was feasible to put down such an infrastructure at that location. Soil testing was necessary, and other geotechnical surveys should have been conducted so as to ascertain whether it was proper to invest over $535 million dollars on a project like this. Now, we do not have a problem with the project because there is need for a pump station in the area to bring relief to the residents there. However, it is costing the people more now because with this delay that the ministry claim they're putting it on hold temporarily right now as they do their assessment, something they should have done from the outset. With this hold on the project, you would notice, and it's a pity that we don't have a picture to show indeed, but you would have noticed there that there's a new dam, a new mud dam, so to speak, that had to be constructed to not cause heavier flooding, and that was constructed for over $150 million. So here you have a project that has not only costed taxpayers $535 million for this project of the pump station, but over $150 million was spent to do temporary reinforcement of a coffer dam so that the Pomeroon River would not overflow onto the land and cause great flooding. It goes to show the incompetence of the minister. And I'm not going to go after the technical staff because the technical staff were subject to political instructions. And that is the issue that we have in Guyana, where political interference is too much and it is causing technical and professional people to, to do things outside of what their profession dictates. And you will not find them complaining or them retaliating in the greater number. You may have one or two who will stand up for their integrity and not allow their integrity to come into question, their credibility and their standard to which they must be held. There's some that will stand up against political directives that can bring that credibility and integrity into question, but majority would not. And I have to understand, Shurwayne will understand, and you too, Sir Dennis, will understand that these people depend on their jobs for their livelihood. They depend on their earnings from their respective jobs to live. They have their families to take care of, they have basic bills to pay, light bill, water bill, and the likes, and they have to survive. And when they challenge the politicians intervene and influence the system to the point where they are subject to dismissal, and on many occasions, they are not given a fair hearing. So I am not challenging any technical officer. I am putting the blame squarely at the feet of the minister because it is his political intervention that has caused this pump station to be where it is, and it is his political directive that has caused this country to go in excess of over $535 million for the pump station and over $150 million or thereabout for this temporary cofferdam not to have to deter the Pomeroon River from flowing over. So it's incompetence at that level. The greater discussion, Dennis, has to do with the greater discussion has to do with the fact that we have to have a government where the politicians stick to policies and you allow the technical officers to function effectively and to execute the policies that the politicians will formulate. And if the technical officers refuse, then they will have to face the consequences. But you cannot have incompetent people at the level of policy wanting to execute also at the technical level. What qualifications Zulfikar Mustafa has to give him that authority to decide where a pump station should be? What qualification does he have to determine whether this amount of money or that amount of money should be spent on a pump station? All he was doing was grazing Black Delhi sheep in quarantine all his life before he became a minister. So I don't know what qualification he has to determine that. So I just want to make that comment on the pump station. Thank you very much.
All right. So I think we have a few minutes more on this program, and there's a very important thing. Maybe MP Holder, you can cause us to come back next week to continue on these incomplete projects. And so we want now, with your permission, both MPs, for us to move on to this most troubled period, but one of the most troubled period in the history of this country, as we turn our attention now to the Adriana Young demise. Let us, for purposes of this discourse, fashion this discourse on the Adriana demise. And so, if one of you, maybe MP Holder, can give a background to us as it relates to that, and then we take it further as to the police incompetence and the post-mortem examination. Then we go to the statement made by the Prime Minister, and then we take it through there. And the legal team that visited, but I don't really want to say the Commissioner of Police. I wanted to say something else. But MP Holder, if you can give us a background as to this whole thing.
Well, look, let me first
So
express
before you
condolences.
go, I think you need to advise the public that Adriana Young is a close relative to you and your family.
Yes, indeed, she is. She is a fourth generation cousin, whatever you call that. I don't know if it's great cousin, but she's in the fourth generation. Her grandfather and my father are cousins, are first cousins. So that is how we related. And let me express again my condolences to the family, her mother and father, the entire family. You know, Sir Dennis, this is a tragedy, a real tragedy, um, to come upon this nation, which I think caused an awakening, an eye opening to so many Guyanese across the racial divide, across the political divide. All Guyanese were in a state of disbelief, in a state of shock, were angry, outright angry with what transpired with respect to this young girl. Adriana disappeared the very day that the leader of the opposition and our team were in Region 2 on the ground, sometime around between 2 3 o'clock on the 23rd of April. And I'm told that the parents, after conducting a search, they were in the pool. She disappeared from there. They conducted a search. This is daytime. and they didn't find her. They didn't locate her. They made a report. But the police failed to act. They failed to act immediately. And there is where the issue, the other events that eventually took place began. I started to follow this story from the night because we were in the fields working, so we were totally unaware of what would have been transpiring during the afternoon. But right through the night, I think after the people were convinced that something was amiss, they felt that foul play was involved because they could not locate her in the pool. And so she had to be somewhere in the hotel. And they refused to move from the hotel. The villagers were out there in their numbers, people from all walks of life were out there in the streets. You would see it in the videos. And but what struck me is the approach to this issue by the police. They failed at that point. I think other than failing to act immediately, that was their first failure, to act immediately, because this was a little child, an 11-year-old that's missing in broad daylight, in plain sight. And so they failed immediately to act. And their second failure would have been at that point at the hotel, in my view, where they failed to acknowledge what the parents were saying, and they failed to lock down the entire establishment there and treat it as if a crime was committed. They failed in that regard at that point, and I believe all the other events that we saw would have been premised on that. Now they failed to lock down the hotel. Um, what they seemed to be doing at that stage in the night was to protect the hotel, was to guard the hotel, but not really lock it down in the sense of processing, treating it as a crime scene and to process it. And by the next day, we saw even more bizarre action from the police commander and others there, the police leadership in the region, where they attempted to convince the parents, the family, and the entire public that somehow this young girl, there was some video of this girl leaving the hotel and entering some vehicle, and so she was actually at some other location other than the hotel. While that was going on, I'm told her body was discovered because persons were distracted in the view of the public, while the commander was actually saying to the public, well, there is this video in existence, and I believe they put out a statement to that effect as well. And he took persons away from the hotel, away from in front of the hotel, and therefore there weren't many eyes there to see what was transpiring, though people were suspicious. And then mysteriously, the body appeared in the pool, and we all know what transpired thereafter. So I believe the failure of the police would have been at this point. The initial failures of the police would have been at this point, if they acted professionally, had they acted in the right manner. I believe much of what would have occurred after the fact, and I know we will get a chance to discuss that, would not have occurred. They had to operate in a professional manner. In my view, you had to, when you lock down the hotel, you do a press conference immediately. It could be right in front of the hotel. You have your crime chief and others speak to the matter. You let the public know that, look, there are 36 guests in the hotel, 12 employees. We're processing all of them. We're going to bring in the sniffer dogs that will comb the area, that will separate the sheep, if I can say, the sheep from the goat. Because once you have the sniffer dogs in, they can tell if somebody would have handled this young lady. And so you have you now create some suspects that you have at a higher level. And you also have a system whereby all of the employees and the guests would have to report to the police the next morning, the police station at a particular time. You block them from leaving the country. I'm not a police. I'm not an investigator. Don't have any experience in it. But I could see that as a more reasonable approach that would instill some level of confidence, that would have instilled some level of confidence in the public, saying to the public that, look, they're operating in a professional manner and they're going to, do everything possible to recover this child one way or the other. I know there is a deeper problem. There is a deeper problem with the police force in terms of trust. I can speak to the issue why we are here, or I should give Comrade Ganesh my Paul that opportunity if I should. I know he wants to speak a lot on it, and so there is a deeper underlying issue why we are here at this point. But I just chronicle the events to give you a background as the events unfold up to the point where the body was found.
Good. Thank you, MP Holder. So we take it from there, and I think as a good follow-up and a question to go to MP Paul would be, MP Paul, help us understand the irresponsible behavior of the rogue elements of the Guyana Police Force in this whole scenario.
Thank you very much, sir. Permit me just to go back a little because this is a very sensitive matter indeed. And for me to complement what Shurwayne said by adding that Adriana Young, as all know by now, was 11 years old, and during her short life on earth, she attended the Islamic Academy at Metamirzorg, there, that private school. She was also a student at Greenwich Park Primary, and in her last couple of months at the primary level, she was a student at Parika Salem Primary School. She wrote the National Grade 6 assessment that is currently being marked, and she was very optimistic about getting a school within the top 5 that we have in the country. Based on my inquiry, she was a good student academically, and her parents and the school, Parika Salem, expected her to do very well. Those results will come out. Hers will come out too. Sadly, the parents can't do nothing with those results. So it is a very sad situation indeed. And to come now to your question, when people like myself and Shurwayne Holder, even you, Dennis Jaikaran, and others who are associated to a political party seek to offer some comments on matters like this, the government, with their degree of incompetence, will want to, as they have done in the past, categorize the matter as us politicizing it, as us politicizing this event. We are not politicizing this matter. We are simply making the necessary representation after considering the facts that are before us. And the first fact that ought to be confronted here is that Irfan Ali appointed unilaterally a commissioner of police in the name of Clifton Hickin. Clifton Hickin did not and does not and will never enjoy the support of the parliamentary opposition. We were against his appointment primarily because his record does not stand well in our country. And we do not believe that he has the competence and the know-how to be at the helm of the Guyana Police Force. Irfan Ali did not listen to us and our guidance, and he went and unilaterally appointed Clifton Hickins, which was a political appointment. Clifton Hickins, or Hickin, Clifton Hickin, with that authority being Commissioner of Police, which he got from Irfan Ali, appointed several commanders in the respective regions. And Khalid Mandal was one such commander in Region 3. And Khalid Mandal, as the commander of Region 3, then went and appointed three subdivisional heads, because Dennis, you would know that Region 3 is divided into three subdivisions when it comes to policing work in Region 3. And those subdivisional heads will have under them SOs in charge of respective police stations. I am saying that to show the link that with an incompetent commissioner of police, it gave us an incompetent commander, and that is why we are where we are today. And that is why it is important for people to understand that if you don't have competence at the top, you are bound to have incompetence at the bottom. If we had a proper commander, we would not have been in this situation we are in. If we had a proper commissioner of police, we would not have been in the situation we're in. The commander told the mother who could not have located her child to go home. That's what the commander told her, go home. The same commander said to the family that he has a video, and he saw the video, he said that, where the young girl went into a black and red Ram, associated a vehicle number, PSS something, and said that it was heading in an eastern direction towards Vredenhoek. Later down, they associated the vehicle to a name, Orlando, bringing into disrepute that man's credibility, associating him publicly to a crime he knows nothing about, and brought his entire reputation into disrepute. And all of this was said in such a convincing manner that anybody would have concluded in their right minds that this girl indeed went to this red and black Ram, because it was a convincing story that the police presented. If that family and those supporters did not stay there, who knows, there could have been a different twist to everything that is actually going on. It is good that the family stayed and held their ground and maintained that their body, they maintained that their girl, because they didn't know she died as yet, they maintained that that young girl, Adriana Young, is in there, in that place. If the police had acted more responsibly, then we would have had a different outcome. That I am certain. But because of the police's action, there is a complete breakdown of trust. There is a complete breakdown of confidence. And in order for us to restore confidence and for us to restore trust, there are certain actions that must be taken. Another sad reality is that when the body of young Adriana Young was found, the commander, Khalid Mandal, remained in the region. No action was taken against him for that false information he provided. It was 2 days after, when there was that protest in front of Lenora police station. That is the afternoon when they removed Mandal from Region 3 and transferred him to the east bank of Demerara. That is the first information that came out from Big Smith News, that Khalid Mandal has been transferred to the east bank and Sinarine has returned to Region 3. And I said to a senior police on the ground there that that is not what the people wanted. You can't expect to quiet a crowd that is angry at what the police did, and the solution you proffered was to transfer the problem from one division to another. Subsequently, they said administrative leave. And These are things that have caused the people to lose trust and lose confidence in the Guyana police force. But we can restore trust. We can rebuild confidence. And we have to, because the Guyana police force is an important part of our country. The Guyana police force has 5,000 plus officers, and I believe over 4,000 and more are competent, capable, and charismatic in executing their functions and can be trusted. But because they are subject to the one at the top that I believe is extremely corrupt and does not fit to be there, has demonstrated his level of incompetence, and the people have lost trust in him. That is why the others are looking bad in the whole scheme of things. But we have to be very careful in pointing out that there are several police officers, I think over 4,000 plus, that are good police officers, good men and women in uniform. It's just a couple of them that are bringing embarrassment to the entire force and is causing everyone to paint the entire force in a bad way. But we can restore trust and rebuild confidence. The first thing that we got to do, or the first thing Irfan should do, is to remove Clifton Hickin. He doesn't seem to want to do that. I was elated to hear Aubrey Norton say that a vote for the APNU is a vote for a competent and a trustworthy commissioner of police, not the one like what we have, who is neither qualified nor certified for the job. So Aubrey Norton has already said that under his presidency, there is no space for Clifton Hickin. And I second that. Shurwayne thirds it, and I think everybody else in Guyana will welcome such a move. The fact that Irfan is not acting on that means that he is not fit to be re-elected as president of this country. If we remove Clifton Hickin and we put a competent commissioner, we can guarantee ourselves a transformative police force. I now turn my attention, Dennis, to the Prime Minister. And I'm going to just say one thing on him because I'm sure my brother Shurwayne wants to come back in. The Prime Minister said that when he was when the question was posed concerning the crowd and the mobs and so on, the Prime Minister said that our country is a country of technology and that we have smart city and smart country and that he has proof that these very peaceful protesters turned into a mob and mob behavior. And all I wanted to know from the Prime Minister, if that is the same smart city and smart country that showed Adriana Young went into a black and red ram heading easternly towards Breeden Hoop. So one time, the smart city and the smart country failed the nation with satisfactory evidence to show that it was wrong. But then the next time, the Prime Minister wants us to believe that we have a good smart city and smart country. So, what you call it, surveillance system that presented peaceful protesters as mobs. The evidence that we have, which is before the eyes of everyone, is PPP people who are publicly associated to the People's Progressive Party being present, associating in mob like behavior. And that is what the PPP wants to try to hide. And the PM tried it. But the PM, like Sam Hines, no different from Sam Hines, is being used at a time like this to seek to bring some degree of calmness. I believe in peaceful protest and I endorse that. I'm against looting. I'm against beating up anybody. I'm against all the wrongs that have happened. But people in this country want answers. And the government is not moving in any direction to give them any answers. The latest was telling us about some retiree in Canada, somebody who retired, God knows how long, who was who was a desk officer, I am told, because we also have our people in Canada doing background checks for us, and they're providing us with information that some retiree from Canada, and if he had a distinguished career, then so be it. Thank you for your service to the world and to Canada and what's not. No disrespect intended, but you're retired. You're not going to come here with uh, any organization under your ambit to say you're holding to this standard or so. You're a retiree. What we want is a competent team from one of the recognized institutions recommended to come to carry out an international investigation so as to ascertain the manner of death of Adriana Young. Because nobody in their righted sense believe Adriana Young died in that pool. The pathologist said that she drowned. I have no authority to question any of those pathologists because they are competent in their respective fields. They said she died by drowning. That's the cause of death. The issue here is the manner of death, the manner in which she drowned. The toxicology report is also very critical and important to know if she had any substance in her system that could have caused or whatever. The toxicology report will be specific on. But an international investigation is necessary. The Guyana police force cannot do it because we don't trust them, and it is their own officers they will more than likely be investigating. We need a credible international investigation to be done by a competent authority consisting of people who are actually functioning in their respective countries under their umbrella organization, not a retiree. Rest my case there, sir.
Thank you very much, MP, my Paul. We have 6 minutes more on this program. So what I would do, I would ask MP Holder, having had that background, and I think it was yesterday the legal team representing the parents of Adriana Young would have visited the Commission of Police. And so if we ask MP Holder to lead us in a discourse on that, and then at the same time taking into consideration the remaining time we have on this program, to also bring your closing remarks, and then I go to MP Mike Paul for his closing remarks, and then we conclude this program. So MP
Yeah,
Holder.
thanks, Sir Dennis. We certainly need more time to ventilate this matter. I can't believe the time is up already.
Yeah.
Look, the attorney and the family, we're told, approached the police yesterday for obviously for some much needed answers and some level of closure to certain aspects of this matter. But before that, you had the prime minister had a show, and I saw him on his show saying that they could do exactly that. He said that, among other things that Comrade Ganesh would have mentioned about the smart city and all these things, cameras, and how we're doing very well. Guyana is such a nice place. And the post-mortem has been completed, and that report is with the commission, is with the police. And persons who are authorized can go there and uplift that copy. I think almost the exact words, identical words he said. But lo and behold, when the family, no other than the family with their lawyer, Adriana's mom and dad, were there with their lawyer, asking some basic questions that any competent officer of the force at that level should have been able to answer. Any competent officer that is interested in operating in a transparent manner would be able to answer. He provided no answers. Basically provided no answers, contradicted the prime minister of this country in terms of the availability of the post-mortem, the preliminary report on the post-mortem. And this is something very basic. This is something very basic, very, very basic. I cannot understand why is it that you cannot present the findings. They talk about the findings, but you can't get it on paper. Even the parents can't get it on paper at this stage. And I know we're out of time and I want to give Ganesh some closing remarks. But the key issue here to my mind is that what is clear to all and sundry is that the government of Guyana is unwilling through their actions, they're unwilling to allow this to conclude in a transparent manner where justice will be served to the family and where certain actions could be taken to bring the necessary reforms required for the police force. I know we're out of time, so I want to leave it right there. I know next week, this isn't the end of it, and so we'll get an opportunity to ventilate more on it. But that is the crux of the matter. I believe the government should be held accountable at this stage. Irfan Ali is the commander in chief of the armed forces. He appointed a king. He has the powers to make right this situation. But for whatever reason, he is unwilling, and by extension, his government is unwilling. And so I want to say at this stage is that they are not deserving through this very matter, through their actions or inaction in this very matter. The people of Guyana should see it for what it is and ensure that we get these bastards out and we put a competent government, a competent president in place that has their best interests, the interests of all Guyanese at heart.
Thank you very much, MP Hola. MP Maipal, we take your closing remarks and then I close up the program.
Well, I will continue from where Shurwayne left off by saying putting a competent president and a competent government in place requires the people to understand who they're supporting. And I want to say that Aubrey Norton has been associated with politics in Guyana since 1972. And he held several distinguished offices at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and other ministries in various government positions. And not once was he ever associated with the word corruption. He has demonstrated that he has the ability to root out corruption because he doesn't like it. And he has never been associated with it. There is nothing the People's Progressive Party can point to Aubrey Norton with reference to corruption. Absolutely nothing. And that is what we have to fix in our country. Corruption is at a different level. It is corruption that is responsible for where we are right now. We are the richest country in South America per capita. And in the Caribbean, I think we're the second richest right now, heading in the direction of being the richest per capita. But yet we are extremely poor as a people because there is no focus by this administration on human capital development. There is no focus by this government on building our people, making us better, investing in us, spending behind our children to make them better. Give the human capital development sector a boost. No focus by this government. Building roads, that is good. Building a bridge, that is good. Building all of these infrastructure, we see it, yes. But if you don't have proper people to inherit it, then it makes no sense. So you have to you have to invest in your people. And Aubrey Norton has promised that. Aubrey Norton has promised to get to the bottom of several wrongs, beginning from the murder of the Henry boys. Then we have Harish Singh. Then we have Quindon Bacchus. We have Orrin Boston. We have the Peter and Fojini from Linden, and now we have Adriana Young. Too many instances of bad has happened under the PPP. And every time the PPP is in government, we are faced with unfavorable circumstances that includes murder. Every time they're in government, not once can we point to such situations like this when David Granger was in power. And I had to make it known on Facebook today that the problem is the politician on the PPP side, because it is the PPP who appointed, as I said, an incompetent commissioner of police. Under David Granger, we had David Ramnarayan as a commissioner of police and Leslie James. Did we have a police force like what we have now? No. So the problem has to be the people who are sitting at the head as the political people in government, and there seems to be a blight on this country. But listen, Guyanese can fix it. Guyanese can fix it. All they have to do is vote for competence, vote for honesty, vote for integrity, and vote for a man that has a proven track record. And he always would say, for Guyana to grow, the PPP has to go. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you very much, both MP Paul and Holder. Viewers, I think we had an exciting, so to speak, I'm using the word exciting, discussion on this topic tonight. You know that very many things we did not touch on this program, but this program is hosted by the Honorable Shurwayne Holder, and I happen to be the co-host of this program. So once he would have indicated sometime that we would do this program, continue this topic next week, then you would hear more on these areas that we would have discussed tonight. So once again, MP Paul and MP Holder, thank you very much. Viewers, thank you very much for tuning in. Please continue to support this program as it relates to looking and listening. And we want to say how grateful we are to you. Good night, and may God bless you.